deal was made earlier this year between the House and Senate leadership that the House would pass their big budget over to the Senate before crossover day or by crossover day. Obviously, the House has failed to do that. So we're looking at hopefully getting the budget out of the House this week. Mr. President, I'm going to recommend that this Senate chamber not consider any House bills on the floor of the Senate until the House passes its budget.
A good-natured throwing down of the gauntlet by the Senate to the House about getting the 2025 budget to them soon. Good evening and welcome to Lawmakers on this day 29 of the legislative session. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. It's a big week at the Capitol for anyone interested in running for office this year in Georgia. It's qualifying week through Friday. All 236 seats in the General Assembly are up for grabs, and so are Georgia's congressional offices. We'll have more on that in a moment. Plus, Georgia has a system that rates the quality of learning in individual schools. One legislator is spearheading a move to make some changes to that system. He joins us in the studio. Also with us is a lawmaker who wants to repeal a law that keeps students convicted of nonviolent drug offenses from getting the Hope Scholarship. And should adult wards of the state be allowed to communicate with their guardians? We'll hear more about that from the legislator who wants to make that happen. We'll also talk about bills of interest to military families with a senator who has a couple of bills to help the spouses while they are in Georgia. But first, we go to the Gold Dome and a Capitol report from Sarah Callis.
Hi, Donna. Lawmakers returned to the Capitol today after a late night on crossover day. This week, many lawmakers will reach a key milestone in re-election. Qualifying week kicked off today with major candidates visiting the Gold Dome. They have to register and pay a fee in order to appear on the May primary ballot. U.S. Representative Lucy McBath qualified for a run in a new district.
You know, we keep having these discussions over and over again, but I'm happy to represent any constituent. I'm happy to continue to do the work. And I have decided, as I have in every election, I will not let the extremist Republicans determine when my work in Congress is done. I will let the people decide.
U.S. Representatives Nikema Williams and Rich McCormick also qualified today. In the House, members honored a friend of the chamber who passed away last week. Bruce Sims served as a doorkeeper in the House for over a decade.
Mr. Bruce served as a doorkeeper in this House over 16 years. He was dedicated, and what a nice man who always had a kind word and made us feel good about ourselves and about the work we're doing.
The House adjourned without voting on any bills. In the Senate, a quiet day with no bills on the floor, but that didn't stop a little inter-chamber rivalry.
The Senate passed 67 House bills through March 1st. The House has only passed 26 Senate bills. What have they been doing? I can't ask the question, but thank you, Senator. The Senate, on the other hand, has passed 139 Senate bills, and the House has passed 280 House bills. So the House is outpacing us 280 to 125. So there's a lot of work for us to do.
That statement led to this.
A deal was made earlier this year between the House and Senate leadership that the House would pass their big budget over to the Senate before crossover day or by crossover day. Obviously, the House has failed to do that. So we're looking at hopefully getting the budget out of the House this week. Mr. President, I'm going to recommend that this Senate chamber not consider any House bills on the floor of the Senate until the House passes its budget.
Also receiving a bit of the majority leader's attention, an unsuspecting senator.
We've been given an award out from time to time in the Senate for the last year and 3 months. It's called the Golden Elephant Award. And this award has been given to deserving senators who are primarily pushing conservative ideologies and good, strong, fiscal, responsible pieces of legislation. And we've been given that award from time to time. But last week, we saw benefits of giving it to someone from the minority party. One of our senators from the minority party went above and beyond the means of a true patriot. And so we're going to issue this award this morning to a senator who helped us on religious freedom last week. We cut the debate short by several hours because he was worried about passing other good conservative measures in our Senate chamber. This senator also helped us on a small, little, simple licensing plate. In fact, made an amendment to include a former president's name on that license plate. Another good, strong conservative measure. So, Mr. President, I'm going to leave this elephant up here, and I hope the recipient of this week's award will come forward and accept it with humbleness and gratitude. And this award goes to the senator from the 14th District. Congratulations.
If there are any Republicans in my district who accuse me of being a left-wing nut, this is my answer. So thank you very much for the honor.
Lawmakers return at their usual time tomorrow for Day 30. That's all for my Capitol Report. Donna, back to you.
Thanks, Sarah, for that report. From elementary through college and technical school, each year the General Assembly passes lots of bills focused on Georgia's education system. We're going to spend some time looking at some of those bills and more with our guests. First, Democratic Representative Eric Bell of Jonesboro, who is new to the legislature this year. He was elected to fill a vacancy very late last session. And Republican Representative Scott Hilton of Peachtree Corners is vice chair of the House Education Committee. He served as House Deputy Whip during his previous term from 2017 to 2019. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here for Lawmakers. I appreciate it. And we're going to say that you only served like 1 day or 2 days last year?
Technically 2 days.
2 days last year. So you really are getting the full year this year. So let's start with you. You have a bill looking to repeal the Drug-Free Post-Secondary Education Act of 1990. What is it and what does it do?
So the Drug-Free Post-Secondary Act of 1990 essentially says any person in the state of Georgia that has a drug conviction is ineligible for the Hope Scholarship, in-state tuition, in-state grants and loans to go to college or technical school. And for us in Georgia, that looks about 35,000 people annually. And over the stint of this bill, that's millions of Georgians that have not been afforded the opportunity to go to higher ed, to become a part of our workforce, a workforce that our governor says 40% of our high schoolers will be ineligible to enter. So this really is a bill, an emergency bill, to make sure that Georgia remains the #1 place to do business.
Now, tell us a little bit about the background, why you decided that you wanted to go for this bill.
Well, multiple things. I have personal family experience with individuals who have drug convictions that weren't able to see higher ed, and you can see the ripples that affects through generations, not just their person's lifetime, but the generational effect that it has on a person and a community. So that's one of the first things. But second, every Georgian or every person deserves a second chance, no matter what they do, whether it's their first time on prom night or they're suffering from poverty and they see this as a means to move up the of their economic status, their current economic status. So this bill is a lifeline to all those Georgians to say that you matter and you deserve to be a part of this economy.
Okay, well, thank you for telling us about it. I'll get back with you in a second. I know you have some more bills. So you have a bill that deals with something a lot of people don't really think much about, but it's important to them, and that is the rating system for Georgia schools. So talk about what exists now and then the changes you'd like to see happen.
Well, thank you, Donna. First and foremost, it's an honor to join you this evening. When I first ran for office, I committed to my constituents that I will help empower parents, and no better way than putting transparent information at their fingertips to make decisions in their child's education. And so Georgia right now produces a performance rating for our schools. We began that process in 2012. We actually suspended it after 2019, and we're just now getting back to that process. And I want to make sure we do it right. So the CCRPI we produce is a single score that's easy for parents to understand and make decisions on where their children go to school.
Yeah, so right now you can look at it and you can compare your child's school to another school, that kind of thing. There's a move to change that then? There is. The Department of Education recently received a waiver from the feds to produce a score that was disaggregated across 5 different metrics.
my thought process is parents are busy, they don't have a lot of time. That needs to be a single score, and that calculation needs to stay the same year over year so parents can go back and look to see, is my school making progress, and how are they doing?
So what would your bill do?
So my bill, House Bill 1186, would require the production of one score for every school across the state, and that school would have to be published on the school's website and the school system's website, so parents could easily compare across schools and school systems how their school is performing. Here in Georgia, we spend billions of dollars on education. We've got to be transparent as, is that paying off for us? Are we seeing the ROI in education improvements?
And the areas we're talking about is maybe reading and certain things like that, right?
Graduation rates, reading, preparedness, progress to goal, career readiness. Yeah, there's a number of metrics that are right now disaggregated. We want to roll those all up into one score that parents can easily understand.
I remember when they used to have like a letter grade, but now it's a number that you have to find out how your child's school is doing.
You know, I liken it to when you and I go out to eat, right? We go to a score we see a restaurant. There's a score we can understand. Is it low? Is it high? So this would be a very simple 0 to 100. How is your school performing? And I think we need to be transparent back to our parents and provide them that information.
Where is your bill right now?
So right now, the bill unfortunately did not make it over through crossover, but as you know, we have plenty of opportunity to help amend and substitute in other bills. And so I've got meetings tomorrow to discuss that and figure out, how can we get this across the finish line? It's got a lot of support, and I feel confident we're going to get it done.
Yeah, and then you're with education, so that's your committee, so you might be able to do that. I want to get back with you, Representative Bell. You have another measure dealing with human trafficking. Talk about HB 853.
So HB 853 is a study committee to look at the interstate system as well as our port, as well as our airport, to see the impact that has on human trafficking. As we know, people are getting moved around for forced labor in many different capacities. And the fact that Georgia has a top-grade interstate system, the fact that Georgia has the #1 busiest and most efficient airport, and the fact that we have one of the fastest-growing seaports is a contributor to human trafficking. And as a state legislature, we can definitely step up and do our fair share to hamper any ill will or any ill-acting character that would like to subject an individual to being trafficked.
So you mentioned Hartsville-Jackson. You work out there.
I do.
And tell us what you do.
Government affairs. Currently.
Right. But then you were in the Navy and worked in similar
Yes,
in aviation too. So you recognize the need at our airport,
definitely.
the world's busiest airport.
Definitely. And it's not an airport thing. It's just a volume thing. We have over 100 million passengers a year. There's a lot of people. A lot of different things are happening. So it's just one thing. The airport's already doing a great job, but looking at it from a state level, I think we can help out a lot more. To say a little more is not enough, but there's a lot we can do in this field, especially when we're talking about individuals as young as 13, 12 being trafficked. Not just adults, but especially our babies, our children, the kids. Those are the ones we're really looking out for, because they don't understand when they enter this life or enter a certain lifestyle, what can really come from it. They just might want to get a new cell phone or the newest CD. Oh, I'm showing my age. But they're looking for the newest gadget, and they're looking for the means to find that. And by combating human trafficking, we're going to save a lot of lives.
Frankly, you look too young to even know about CDs, right? So I wanted to talk to you both about how you think things are going. So today was a quiet day. We heard Sarah's report. So explain to people why that might be happening now. Crossover day happened, qualifying. It's different for a few days, right?
Yeah, so last Thursday was crossover day. We were down there just about midnight voting on bills, and all bills have to pass out of the House or the Senate to be considered to be still alive. I think we did a lot of great things on crossover day for Georgians. I know recently the issue of immigration has come up. We passed a bill in regards to that. To make sure that folks who are here in our state who maybe shouldn't be here are being reported accordingly. And so really trying to address the needs that are on my constituents' mind and that of all Georgians right now.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on how things are going so far?
So far, so good. People like to say that in Georgia we're a divided house between Republicans and Democrats, but majority of the bills that we vote on are good bills. They're good bills for Georgia citizens. They're good bills to provide for a future that we all want to see for Georgia. But there are some stick in the weeds, like we talked about the immigration bill. But for the most part, we're doing a great job to make sure that Georgia stays on track.
Yeah, and so your thoughts so far, like this was your first session.
Well, so far, I think there's a lot of pageantry. But that comes with the ground. But I think we can.
But you were in the Navy, so pageantry. A little bit. I don't know.
We'll leave that for the Air Force. But I feel like we can dive in a little deeper and really work for the people that can't advocate for themselves, especially the homeless, those who have mental health issues, and are prisoners. I think we can have a little more humility and be a lot less nice and a lot more kind to those individuals that haven't had the same opportunities that we had.
Okay,
Because we're only a step away from either being disabled or even being homeless, whether that's a car wreck that causes you to lose your job or you get pulled over for a substance that is legal in other states. You're only just one mistake away from being in someone else's shoes.
Well, appreciate both of you talking to me and talking about the bills that you are obviously very passionate about. And, you know, my dad was in the Air Force, so, okay, I'll remember that comment. All right. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
Coming up, dozens of bills this session focus on workforce issues. We're going to hear from 2 lawmakers with legislation to make life less challenging for working families. So stay with us.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
People put their faith in PBS because they know that it is constantly delivering quality. It covers the whole of the United States. It's a free and independent media.
We go where the viewers are.
What are the conversations that are happening right now?
We feel that civil discourse is a civic responsibility.
What we do is authentic reporting that people can trust.
We give time so you can hear voices on all sides of an issue.
This is the place that people turn to for stories that matter.
And they know that when they walk away, they will have learned something about the world around them.
That's why this makes PBS important for daily life and, in the end, our world.
Thank you for joining us.
Community. Learning, working, playing, celebrating, doing life is always better together. At GPB, we aim to provide you with the tools to be able to do life together well. Our mission to educate, inform, and entertain inspires everything from our wide range of programming to our stimulating radio conversations to our fun in-person events. We've got something for everyone. Visit gpb.org/community to learn more about our upcoming events.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. We're going to talk about a variety of legislation with our guests. Joining me is Republican Senator Larry Walker III of Perry. He is chairman of the Senate Insurance and Labor Committee. And also with us is Democratic Representative Regina Lewis Ward of McDonough. Among her committees is Agriculture and Consumer Affairs. So welcome to Lawmakers. I appreciate you both being here.
Thank you.
It was a quiet day there, but we can get things rolling here at the Capitol, I should say. So I want to talk to you about, you've got some bills dealing with military families. And as we get started talking about that, I want to put up some information so people get an idea of the scope of this. I got this data from the Defense Manpower Data Center that I didn't even know existed, but there are roughly 57,000 active duty service members in Georgia, more than 24,000 active duty spouses, about 42,000 National Guard and Reserve members, and then more than 17,000 of them have spouses in Georgia. So we're talking about more people than some may imagine. Chairman, you support HB 880 that deals with occupational licenses for military spouses. Tell us a little bit about what that's about.
Thank you for having me, Donna. It's great to be with you. I represent Robbins Air Force Base in my district, and it's the economic driver for Middle Georgia. And of course, they keep our planes flying and keep our country safe and support the warfighter. We want to do the same to support them. We brag about being the #1 state for business. We want to be the #1 state for our military. Military members, as you probably know, generally move every 2 years. So they're moving all over the country and, in fact, the world. And not only is the military member sacrificing for our country, but their family is sacrificing too. So the spouse goes with them when they move, and it's hard for a spouse to have a career when they're having to get a new license every time they move. This is a priority for the Department of Defense, a priority for the 21st Century Partnership, which is the advocacy group for Robins. It's a priority for all of our 10 military installations. And Bethany Ballard, who is part of the House and County delegation, House Member Ballard, got House Bill 880 passed. I'm going to carry it in the Senate, but it gives a immediate license for a military spouse that's licensed in another state, licensed in good standing, and then she applies, or he applies, for an expedited license through Georgia, and they have 30 days to tell them if their expedited license is approved or not, but they can start work immediately. And if they're not turned down within 30 days, then they've got to issue them the license. And this mirrors the Federal Service Members Civil Relief Act that was passed a year or two ago, but it's an issue that I've worked on myself for at least 6 years, and I'm really, really excited. This will be one of the strongest military licensed spouse bills in the country, and will put Georgia on the map as far as being military friendly.
Yeah, so it's just fast tracking things for them. And we're talking all types of professions, teaching for different people who might be doctors or nurses, lawyers, the people who have to have a license and just have a hard time getting them right away.
Right, and they already hold a valid license in another state.
Okay, then. Well, I appreciate what you're doing with that, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And I'm sure you're happy it's already passed in the House, so you get to carry it forward a little bit. So, with you, we want to talk about a bill that you have to help adults who are wards of the states, and these are people that we probably too many people forget. It's HB 144. So tell us what that's about.
First, let me say thank you very much for inviting me here today, and it's really important that I'm here on Women's Month.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. So HB 144 came to me by a constituent. She had a family member who was under the guardianship of his wife, and she did not allow him to communicate with the family. So we did research, and we found out that there is a law already in code in Georgia that spells out the obligations of the guardian. Took a closer look, and what we wanted to do was actually highlight some of the ways that the ward will be able to communicate with their family member if they choose to. Worked with the chair of the Juvenile Justice Committee, and she suggested that we strengthen it and put some penalties in it, and we did that. And last session, it passed the House unanimously. It moved over to the Senate, and it never made it to the Senate floor.
Right.
But it was still alive.
So let's talk about what happened. Something else was tacked onto your bill.
Actually, my bill was gutted. The language was removed. It was stripped. And it was replaced with the language from another bill, the anti-Semitism bill. And that bill did not come to the House floor, but that's what happened to my bill when it went to the Senate.
So where do things stand this year now?
Well, where it stands right now, this summer we had an opportunity to meet with some more people who were interested in the bill and asked us to make some more changes. We did that. We have a sub, and tomorrow it's going to have a hearing in the Family and Children's Services Committee.
Okay, well, good luck to you on that, because it seems like you've done a lot of work on this. Mm-hmm. Now, Chairman Walker, back to you. You also have a bill that focuses on military medical workers in particular, 449. Tell us about that.
Sure. So I chaired a occupational license and study committee during the interim, and we came up with a lot of 11 recommendations, as a matter of fact. One of the recommendations is to look at what Virginia has done with regard to military corpsmen and medics, and recognizing the experience and training they have in the military, so that when they exit the military, hopefully in Georgia, then we would give them a expedited pathway to join our healthcare workforce.
everywhere I go, workforce shortage is a topic of conversation, no matter what industry you're talking to, but it's particularly acute in the healthcare field. And these people are already certified and trained through the military, and we need to recognize that and give them a pathway to get into our healthcare workforce quickly. So it's Senate Bill 449. Georgia's the fifth largest, has the fifth largest military population in the country. You showed some statistics earlier. We have about 700,000 military veterans in Georgia, believe it or not. 100 and something thousand are actually got full military retirement. And a lot of these retirees, have only been in the military, they can retire after 20 years. So they have a second career that they pursue. And those that have this medical experience in the military, we want to get them to be an EMT or a nurse aide or a licensed practical nurse or a paramedic and get them in our healthcare workforce.
Yeah, we certainly need them in certain parts of rural Georgia to make sure that they are filling in where we don't have anybody in those areas.
Right, and of course that's where a lot of our military installations are located. We have 10 major military installations all over the state, a lot of them in rural areas.
Yeah, so I want to get into another bill with you. I'm going back and forth here. You're working on a bill that deals with HOAs. Talk about this, homeowners associations.
Well, we know there's a housing crisis across the country, and Georgia law currently allows HOAs to place liens on homes if the assessments are more than $2,000. So what my bill does, it does three things actually. It makes the assessments inferior to medical debt, meaning that a person who is struggling with paying medical bills, either because they don't have enough medical insurance or the insurance is inadequate, that you can't lose their home because you have the medical debt. The second thing it does is that it requires HOAs to offer some type of assistance in mediation, either mediation or arbitration, before placing a lien on someone's home. Right now, HOAs are not required to work with the homeowners. And the third thing it does is we've been getting a lot of complaints from homeowners when they sell their homes that the closing letter that says that they're in good standing can cost up to $350. And what this bill does is that it asks for the HOAs to send the homeowner a statement that says you're in good standing, and that be used for any type of closing when they're selling their home.
So where are you with that bill at this point?
That bill is back in Legislative Council. We're working on changing some language. So we know that it won't be heard this year, but we're going to bring it back up next year.
Okay. Chairman Walker, I want to get to one more thing with you. Last week in the Senate, they approved your bill that would allow schools and libraries to cut ties with the American Library Association. We don't have a lot of time left, but give us an idea of why you pushed through that bill.
So basically, I want the local library boards and the local librarians to be in charge of deciding what kind of material they want in their community library without undue influence from a radically extreme organization called the American Library Association. It's a private entity based in Chicago. The president is a self-described Marxist, and we don't need them meddling in our local library. So it would defund, it would prohibit public funds from going to the American Library Association.
And the individual, like the schools or the libraries, would make that decision? Or is that overall?
About the funding?
About the funding.
No, they would be prohibited from sending taxpayer dollars or public funds to the American Library Association. I want them to make the decision about the material they put in their libraries and not have ALA dictating that or influencing that.
Okay. Well, we know it's that goes to the House next. I want to thank you both for being here. Good conversation. I appreciate that. So now that does it for Lawmakers today. We'll be back tomorrow, and among our discussions, a bill to criminalize squatting. In the meantime, have a good night.